in 1928, the world signed the Treaty for the Renunciation of War. Probably the most important law ever passed by the nations of the world, and nobody in this country seems to have heard of it. Now, it was very important because after the Second World War, Germany's leaders were prosecuted at Nuremberg and convicted of 11 breaches of the Kellogg-Briand Pact, which is the Treaty for the Renunciation of War. And that became universal law. Now, when George Bush and Tony Blair walked into Afghanistan and to Iraq, they did exactly the same as Germany's leaders did in the Second World War when they walked into Poland and Belgium and Holland and all the other European nations. And now it's very important for ordinary soldiers to realize that the judgment at Nuremberg applies to every human being. And one of the key arguments that Germany's leaders made was that they were only following orders. Now the judges said, no, that's not good enough. If your government breaks the laws of war, you must refuse to obey their orders. And it is that law, which was introduced in 1950, which every one of Britain's armed forces has been breaking ever since. So both the police and the armed forces have a duty in law to refuse to obey the orders to fight in Afghanistan or to support the war in Syria or to attack Libya or to take part in the attacks on Iraq. All of those were illegal. And what very few members of the armed forces or the police know is that it is a criminal offence to follow an unlawful order. And that's what they have been doing for the last 12 years.
Former Judge Ferdinando Imposimato has investigated more serious crimes than David Cameron has done dodgy arms deals. From the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II, the kidnapping and murder of Italian President Aldo Moro, the false flag bombings of Operation Gladio, Imposimato proved such a threat to the mafia. In 1983 they killed his brother Franco as a warning. But unlike some, he is no coward.
Understand that it is impossible that this collapse of World Trade Center 7 happened because of the fires. This collapse happened because of the preparation. Who made this preparation? This is a case that I have studied and I have investigated very well for 14 years. The collapse happened in 6 seconds. So this is possible only if you have prepared the collapse with the bomb.
One of the guys, he can tell you I'm okay, all right? Here, hold on. You want to call your mother or something?
You heard explosions, like boom.
We just heard one more explosion. That's about the 4th one we've heard.
Craig Bartmer was a policeman who was near Building 7 as it started to come down.
It was nothing I would ever imagine seeing in my life. You know, the thing started peeling in on itself, and I mean, there was an umbrella of crap 7 feet over my head that I just stared at. And somebody grabbed my shoulder and I started running, and the shit's hitting the ground behind me. And the whole time you're hearing thum, 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 thum. So I think I know an explosion when I hear it.
A few blocks up West Broadway, looking toward the World Trade Center in the distance, Ashley Banfield was conducting an interview for MSNBC.
You were just told by police that you should move out of your...
The mic was set to pick up speech a few inches away. From the involuntary startle response,
oh my God,
we know explosions are being heard. However, listening closely, we discover that the microphone did indeed pick up the sounds of explosions, but very faintly. Turn up the volume. Listen for a low rumble in the background.
You were just told by police that you should move out of your apartment, Fabiana.
Yes.
You've got Carolina here?
Yes. They advised us to leave because we have...
Oh, my God.
If you didn't hear the blasts, back up, use earphones, turn up the volume, and listen again. There were 2 blasts, followed by 7 more, regularly spaced, all in 2.5 seconds. Craig Bartmer's testimony may come to mind.
The whole time you hear boom, 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 boom. I think I know an explosion when I hear it.
When we hear the sharp, regular series of sounds in the background, the building has not yet started to fall. When we hear the reporters say, "This is it,"
This is it.
the building has not yet started to fall. The fall of the building corresponds to the crescendo in the crowd response. Here is another street scene with the building in full view. The crowd responds almost immediately as the building starts to fall. This occurs just after the reporter says, "This is it."
This is it. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Therefore, the blasts we heard occurred seconds before the building started to fall. When Ashley Banfield says, "This is it," it is because she has been previously told to expect Building 7 to come down.
The brown building, the tall one, is number 7 World Trade Center. I've heard several reports from several different officers now that that is the building that is going to go down next.
Back in the studio, the anchor, Brian Williams, not only had foreknowledge of the collapse, he had a ready explanation.
What we've been fearing all afternoon has apparently happened. We were watching number 7 World Trade, which was part of the ancillary damage of the explosion and collapse of the other 2.
Just as Ashley Banfield was told, Brian Williams was told. There is indeed evidence that even the top fire officials were told.
We are on the phone with New York Fire Department Lieutenant David Restuccio. Lieutenant, where are you right now?
I'm at the corner of Northmore Street and Greenwich Street.
Can you confirm it was number 7 that just went in?
Yes, sir.
And you guys knew this was coming all day?
We had heard reports that the building was unstable and that it eventually would either come down on its own or it would be taken down.
They are policemen. They are members of security. I have to tell you that we need the truth, because without truth it is impossible to improve. This problem we have now, we have had for many years, but it is not finished. You have to know that a lot of soldiers, a lot of policemen, a lot of members of security have been killed. This problem has not been solved.
Crazy Horse 1-8, Bushmaster 7, go ahead.
Yeah, Bushmaster 7, Crazy Horse 1-8, location of bodies, Mike Bravo, 54588617.
Well, the first thing I'd say to somebody who was endeavoring to join the military, you know, hell, my kids might make that choice someday. I have to be willing to accept that possibility. And I'd probably say the same thing to them that I would to a young man today, and that would be, I understand where your desire is to help your country and to protect against what you see as a threat to your way of life. But unfortunately, the truth is far from what you're being told. And unless you're willing to look a little deeper and see what's really at play here, specifically the agenda of never-ending war, always propping up a straw man, a boogeyman, to justify never-ending policies of war, if you're not able to see that, if you're not quite able to grasp that concept, then really there's not much I can say to you. You're going to want to join and fight the good fight and so on and so forth. I understand that. You know, I'm that person. I've been there. And I'm not saying I'm better than you, smarter than you, or anything like that. However, if anyone takes an honest look at 9/11 and specifically Building 7, they will realize they're being lied to. And the entire system is set up to continue lying to them. That tells you a lot about not only how much our government feels about us, but also about what our government's real agenda is and what they're really endorsing, which is a never-ending state of war. These people are psychopaths. They don't have compassion and empathy like a healthy human being does. They don't care about you or me. They don't care about the military. They call us heroes to their media and whatnot. They don't give a shit about us at all. And they certainly don't give a shit about the Iraqi people or the Iranian people or any people for that matter. So if you want to understand the way the world functions, you need to look at it from the perspective of a psychopath who is drunk on his own power. Now, if you can get into that place and start to look at the way the world functions, you're going to find that it all makes perfect sense. Keep in mind these people also have spent their trillions and trillions of dollars and pounds on building things such as underground compounds, which I don't know if you've got an invitation, but I don't. And these people are so nuts that they are willing, in my opinion, to set off a third world war. Look at the policies with regards to antagonizing Russia. What the hell are we doing? We're picking a fight with a nation. Is Russia seriously a threat to Europe or the West? That's just ridiculous. Of course they're not. Why would you do such a thing? Would a sane, healthy human being carry out a policy like that? No. No. But if you're a psychopath who sees that the only way that you can maintain your position of power is to divide people, then you see war as a good thing. For you, war is great. So everything you can do to get people to fight a war against each other and keep fighting each other is good for you. Now, if you're sane, that doesn't make sense. So you need to get out of your sane perspective, get into the mind of a psychopath, drunk on his own power, and see the world that way, and all of these things will make perfect sense. So in the case of ISIS, our best friends and allies in Saudi Arabia, they are the funders of ISIS, as are Qatar, another friend of ours. If you're not willing to accept that our good friends and allies, the ones that we're doing big military defense contracts with, the United States just did a $60 billion contract with Saudi Arabia, which is now pummeling the poorest nation in the Middle East, Yemen. Unless you're willing to accept the fact that our best friends and allies, political allies, are actually the funders of ISIS, and that our governments, they're providing political cover to Saudi Arabia and Qatar and these other nations, the bottom line is you need to look deeper. Because if you're willing to put yourself in a position to kill or be killed, you should make damn sure that it's worth it, really. Because there's 22 American service members a day, and who knows how many English service members a day who are committing suicide every day. And I tell you, the reason why they're doing that is because they realize deep down that whatever lies they've been told don't square with the truth. And they have gone into someone else's land and killed people, including women and children, and they're suffering so badly from that that the best exit for them is to commit suicide. If you have a fighting spirit, if you're a warrior and you want to if you want to fight, then fight the right cause, fight the just cause, fight a cause that will serve all humanity, not some bogus agenda manipulated by the powers that be to get you to go fight wars for a bunch of chicken hawk cowards who will never go off and do the killing that they're ordering you to commit, and they certainly won't have their children going there anyway. They're a bunch of cowards. I don't know why you'd give your life for these cowards.
I came home late one night after a week out of town working, and my son and his mother came in and told me that Noah had shot himself. And actually that was the first night I had slept in like 3 months. I know it sounds horrible, but it was just simply, that's the way it is. I knew it was coming and you were waiting, but what really worried me was his anger toward all of us for letting it happen. He was well armed, he had a .38, he had a rifle from his grandfather that served in World War II. And I was worried about him retaliating against us. And even his mother admitted that he did us a favor because of what could have probably happened. The streets were vacant. There was really no resistance. They just showed up, started cleaning up the mess. The sewer plants were bombed. The water plants were bombed. Just this precision bombing just didn't work. These little kids were really disturbing. They came out after 3 days. They were in shock, and they were starving. And he said for another couple of days, they would just watch them from the background. And eventually they realized they weren't going to be fired upon, and they just all of a sudden went off and started feeding on these little tadpoles that were in the ditches there. And our soldiers couldn't feed them. They couldn't do any help at all. And so these kids started throwing rocks. And they pelted our soldiers for day after day, and then the orders finally came through to shoot these kids so they could get the bodies cleaned up. He didn't engage in it, but others did. And they were so frustrated. You know, here they were just, 6 months before they were at Ronald McDonald land. And now they're in a war zone. War crimes are being committed on a massive scale. And after some of these soldiers killed these kids, my son said that's when the suicide started. And I really don't want to say it in public, but I really think that these 22 a day that are committing suicide should go into city council and inform them that my life is fucked. And one of these days I'm going to shoot myself in your park and you'll have to clean up my corpse. I mean, I know it sounds cold and cruel, but, I would rather have my son do that than just go out in the woods and do it peacefully. Taking your own life is the way you want to do it. But if I would show up right in city council and have my corpse hauled out of there. I mean, like I said, these were the adults that sent kids in the war. I tried to tell them just to bail. Just do not do it. You're better off to do jail time than what you're about to go through. Even I didn't know how cruel these people could be. The training they give these kids is almost guaranteed a suicide. In the Civil War and World War II particularly, they discovered that only 15% of soldiers were actually engaging in pulling the trigger. And so they needed to change that. And they developed these video games. And they're very effective on desensitizing you. So what is happening now, these kids have got up to I guess it's a 98% kill rate, but they can't turn it off. They set up these road checkpoints, and they were very, very confusing, and basically they had brainwashed our soldiers into seeking revenge on the Iraqis for September 11th. They were a whipping boy. And apparently the doctor got a call, his family had been bombed, and he was coming up through a checkpoint, was frustrated, looked different, and the order just came down for my son to shoot the guy. And shot him, got him through the neck. But until you educate the population, it'll just never change. These people do what they do. They create war to create their profits. And we wholeheartedly join the military, we pay our taxes, we follow unconditionally without asking any critical questions. They call you a conspiracy theorist, and instead of talking about the technical, they want to know the who, the whys, and the whats. In other words, they want to engage in the conspiracy theory. World Trade Center 7, I have no idea how they could do something like that, but it's obvious through the evidence we have that it was brought down in controlled demolitions. So that is a job for policemen and investigators. That's their job, and they are failing at this point to accomplish that.